There we go. Now this thing. Come on. Oops. There we go. Now this thing. Let's see here. Okay. Oops. Ugh, come on. Almost ready. There we go. They got that taken care of. Pop out the chat. There we go. Now this
Get
thing.
rid of top chat. I don't know why it does that.
Here.
And we would like to have live chat. Thank you. There we go.
Okay.
All right. Excuse me.
Oops.
Hope you folks are all doing well.
Almost ready. There we go. They got that taken
Wouldn't
care
be morning
of.
without
Pop out
my
the
throat having a
chat.
frog in it. Good morning from
Top
Quebec. How you
chat.
doing? Bogota, Colombia. Good morning. Beautiful Washington, D.C. I'll be in Washington, D.C. in a couple of weeks.
All right.
For Nova
Excuse
Open.
me. Oops.
Alpha
Hope
Strike
you folks
is
are all
pretty
doing
great.
well.
I did not get a chance to play it.
ready.
I
There we
wanted
go. They
to
got
pick
that
up the
taken
new
care
starter
of.
box,
Without
and
my throat
they
having a frog
had
in it.
about 5 or maybe 10. I don't
good
know. They
morning
sold
from
out of them
Quebec. How you
immediately on
doing?
Thursday, and then
Bogota,
we won't be able
Colombia.
to see any until
Beautiful Washington,
November, I
D.C.
believe. I was told. So I'll be in Washington, D.C. in a couple of weeks.
All right.
For Nova
Excuse
Open.
me.
Par for the course.
Alpha
Strike
folks
is
are all
pretty
doing
great.
well.
Is it I did not get a chance to play it.
ready. There
Wanted
we go. They
to
got
pick
that
up the
taken
new
care of.
starter box,
Without
and
my throat
they
having a frog
had
in it.
about 5 or maybe 10. I
good
don't know. They
morning
sold
from
out of them
Quebec. How you
immediately on
doing?
Thursday, and then
Bogota,
we won't
Colombia.
be
Anyone know
able
where
to
that
see
sound is
any
coming
until
from? Beautiful Washington,
November, I
D.C.
believe I was told. So I'll be in Washington, D.C. in a couple of weeks.
All right.
For Nova
Excuse
Open.
me.
Par for the course.
Alpha
Strike
folks
is
are all
pretty
doing
great.
well.
Is it I did not get a chance to play it.
ready.
I
There
wanted
we go. They
to
got
pick
that
up the
taken
sound
care
coming
of.
through my
Without
headphones, and I don't know where
they
from.
had
Had
about
about 5 or maybe 10. I don't know. They
morning
sold
from
out of them
Quebec.
immediately on Thursday, and then
Bogota,
we won't be
Colombia.
able
Anyone know
to
where
see
that
any
sound is
until
coming from? Beautiful Washington,
November, I
D.C.
believe I was told. So I'll be in Washington, D.C. in a couple of weeks.
All right.
Oh, it just started for reasons over there. Okay, that'll help. And now closed captioning is on. I haven't done this in 3 weeks, and evidently my computer is angry at me. I hope you all are doing well, though. Okay, there we go. Groggy, good morning in Jonesboro. Yeah, it's real gray here. Good morning from Massachusetts, building Horus Heresy. Nice. How you doing, VJ Morph? Hope you're doing well. Hello from extremely hot Sweden. It's humid here, but not hot. Connecticut, Columbus, Cincinnati, bunch of places that start with a C. Italy, West Midlands. Double audio. Hopefully we fixed that now. Let's see here. Audio is reverberating. That's not good. Sounds like your audio is playing on your computer. Yeah, it just started playing randomly on a completely different browser. Like when I'm streaming, I'm using Firefox for reasons. It just started playing on Chrome. Don't know what that was all about. Let's see here. Wish I had some drugs for this. That's understandable. Morning from Milwaukee. Inception, clear and good morning. All better now. There we go. Much better. Have you applied the sacred oils? I have. No, I took a shower this morning, so I should be good. Let's see here. What else have we got? Morning from Winnicott. Malkovich. Nice. Uncle Adam and the Multiverse of Voices. There you go. Let's sell that to Marvel. I'm gonna make some coin. Let's see here. Exton PA. Tell Bill he needs to play more Warcry. I don't know who Bill is. Wellborough, UK. I might have gotten that one right. Good morning from Rattlecan Weather in Boston. Nice. It's not Rattlecan weather here because it would be way too humid. Oxfordshire, Chicago, California, Syracuse. My goodness. Good late evening from cold Australia. Morning from Los Angeles. Just got Marvel Crisis Protocol. Quite excited to dig in painting. Nice. Rockford, Illinois. Milford, Illinois. Poland. Mexico. Peru. Northwest Iowa. Afternoon from a hot Bristol in the UK. Hello from Glasgow. Painting up some Haradrim from Middle Earth. Taking a lot of inspiration from historical Berbers. Neat. Morning from Chicago. Maybe your computer needs some incense to be burned for the machine spirits. I think the less smoke inside or near my machine, this particular machine, the better. It is old. It is a pretty old Core i5. It probably really needs to have some cleaning, both like actual, like, you know, lint, and also probably just need to go through and maybe reformat or whatever. But as of yet, I don't have the time. Yesterday, most of the day, I worked on video and marketing stuff for the upcoming game, which is coming very soon. So that was good. I'll be doing a little bit more of that today and some other stuff. I was hoping to hobby a little bit today. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't know that I'm going to get to hobby much between now and the time the game launches. We'll see. Maybe next weekend. We will see. Stupid squirrel out on the bird feeder again. So is the bet settled with Sam? We haven't really talked about it. I talked to him face to face, I don't know, 2 weeks ago maybe, and we hadn't really talked about it. We were talking about Warcry, but we hadn't really talked about the bet. And I think he's traveling maybe this week. I'm not sure where he's at. He wasn't streaming on Friday, so I thought he was going someplace. I thought he said he was going to be doing some traveling, and I thought maybe it was this weekend, but I wasn't 100% sure. I personally think that I win because there is technically a new edition. They've referred to it as a new edition in several articles. And also it didn't screw everything up. So honestly, even if I don't get $5, I still think I win. Just because we, you know, there you go. But yesterday was the day that the new Warcry launched. So if you were inclined to be interested in that kind of thing, yesterday was the day you would wish you could pick those things up. I have been looking through the compendium kind of, you know, new stats and stuff like that, trying to figure out what it's doing to my current lists and stuff like that. It's nothing terrible. There's some things where I'm like, oh, that's a bummer. They kind of changed that a little bit, and it makes that guy slightly less powerful. But he was probably more powerful than he should have been to begin with. And there's other ones where I'm like, oh, cool, these guys are better now. So that's cool too. I've been liking that. Sup from Boston, Montana. Spent the last 2 weeks cleaning and repainting my hobby room, my garage. It was really, really dirty. Finally got it done. Everything gets set to go. Feels like in a room. Nice. Nice. Anyone else heard of Australia? Well, I think that's where you live, isn't it? Oh, looks like a great game. Combines trains and building and great old ones. I have not heard of that. Is that a tabletop game, I'm assuming? Or is it a video game? Let's see here. Cincinnati, Bremerton, Washington, Lancaster, UK. Oh, we got a Fleecy parade. Morning from Pittsburgh. Seeing light at the end of the tunnel. Painting Cursed City down to 3 vampires and the big monster vampire. Nice. Taking the computer out and blowing it with a leaf blower is a good way to get the lint out. I don't know about a leaf blower. Maybe, I guess. I don't know. Do I have a leaf blower? I might have a plug-in one somewhere. Will you be doing anything more on Sona Alpha? It seems really cool. Yeah, that is the plan. I've got some models that I want to be able to get painted up and everything for that. You know, basically launching the new game has taken precedence to everything else. But once that gets launched, which will be soon, then we will. Then I'll have time for being able to do other stuff. My plan is, even if it's who knows how far in the future, is I would really like to do at least a couple of battle reports with Sona Alpha, with the cool terrain that I have for it and all that kind of stuff. But we will. That'll happen when it'll happen. A bit disappointing that they've not included the Underworlds bans in Warcry 2.0. I'm assuming that you are just expected to use the Toma Champions 2021, stats. I'm assuming that's what they want you to do, because you're right, they're not in this new book. Now, The problem is that if you don't already have the Tome of Champions, you can't get it now unless you can find it at a local store where they happen to have it. But I don't think it's on the website anymore. When I did that video, I went and looked on the website, and Tome of Champions 2021 or 2022 or whatever the heck number it was, not there anymore. So I was like, huh, well, that's weird. I think it was 2021, wasn't it? I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, if you don't have that, and it would be, yeah. Here's the thing: if they don't, if you can't buy it anymore, I don't know why they don't just put a PDF of it. You know. Otherwise, they're gonna have to go through and make changes and tweaks and to all the stats, and then put out a PDF of it or something. I don't know. It's a bummer. Tabletop board game. Gotcha. Had a blast with my 9-year-old yesterday playing Bladeborn, aka Warcry Jr. Nice. One of the guys that I was staying with when I was at Gen Con, he brought along Bladeborn, and he was playing with another guy that's because there's like 7 of us this year that were in one hotel room. Now it was a big hotel room. It was a presidential suite, very fancy. But when you split the cost of that 7 ways, it's actually really reasonable. Loud Fleecy Parade, Maggie or Margot? It's always Maggie. Maggie's the one that does the Fleecy Parade. Let's see here. I would not use a leaf blower. An air compressor, I agree with. Sure. Have you picked up Insurgent Earth yet? No, I haven't. I keep seeing it like in the top 5 or whatever on Wargame Vault. Insurgent Earth is a new game by the guy who wrote Sona Alpha. It's Patrick Todorov. And it's kind of a War of the Worlds, kind of. The aliens have landed and now we're fighting against them sort of situation, which is cool. But I have not gotten a chance to pick it up yet. Does Tinker Turf require paint touch-ups after removing the parts? So here's, I just happen to have one of these things here. The only trick is paint touch-ups. No, you may want to use like a brown marker. Maybe it kind of depends. Being perforated, there are spots where like it's like cut all the way around except for one little part. So when you pop the parts out, then it kind of tears a little bit just there, and you have that little piece there. Now you could be very careful and cut with an X-Acto and cut all those before you pop them out. You could do that, or you could just pop them out and then just take a brown marker at one point later on, or whatever color might be, gray marker. The set that I bought was like the abandoned set, so it's all kind of like rusty and whatnot. But this will build a stanchion, so I could pop all these parts out and put them all together. You want to use a bit of glue. The glue they suggest, I was doing it here actually at one point, but the glue that they suggest is turbo tacky glue from Aleen's. You could use probably whatever kind of PVA glue, but the turbo tacky glue dries quickly. And then they also suggest, heavily suggest, these little clampy things of whatever type. These little pinchy things, because then you can kind of glue it together and then just pinch it together and wait for it to dry, and you're not having to stand there and hold it, like so. Yeah, but they go together real quick and they're really nice. I like them a lot. And if you watch the ones in the video that I did on Friday, I had not gone through and used marker on them. So if you do see little spots where it looks like a little lighter gray dot here and there, that's just the part where you would just touch that up a little bit. It'd be great. Played our first game of OPR Fantasy yesterday. It was a lot of fun and great to see a table full of printed figs. Nice. Gotta love modern electronics. It's not working. Did you try blowing on it? Well, my cat is taking great interest in the Fleecy Parade. Howdy from Texas. Well, there you go. Hello from Oakland, California, where the weather is in the 70s most days of the year any place on Earth. Huh, wow. That's pretty cool. Unusual happenings here in Harlingen, Texas. There's some strange wet stuff falling from the sky. They call that rain. It's weird, I know, but it is there. With the surprise of HeroScape coming back, that was a surprise. I agree. What other old games would you love to be raised to the Tabletop Necromancers? Honestly, I'd love to see somebody. I don't know who. I'd love to see somebody make Battlemasters again. I still have my copy of Battlemasters. Battlemasters was, I believe, a cooperation between, I think at the time, either Parker Brothers or Milton Bradley and Games Workshop. And it was a game that came with a board. Board is a strong word. It was basically a piece of like plastic cloth almost. It was like a vinyl-y, very thin vinyl kind of plastic cloth that would fit in the box. When you unfolded it, it made a board that was like, I don't know, 4x4, 4x5, 5x5. It was this huge, massive board that you would play on. It was all printed on, and it had like rivers and fields and crap like that. And then it came with like little castle towers and guys on horseback. And we're not talking about 28 millimeter scale. Like these horses, like it was probably 54 millimeter scale, maybe even bigger. And it came with knights, and it came with all kinds of stuff. If you look up, Battlemaster, it was a cool game. And like I said, I still have my copy. I'd like to see them release something like that again. I don't know that people would be super into it, but I don't know, maybe they would. I got to play Gaslands Friday night, first time in about 3 weeks. Great game that could have been anybody's until Gate 2 was passed and the weapons went live. Got messy quick after. That's kind of how it works. Yeah. Updated my paint range. Love the Wargame color 3rd generation from AK Fabulous range. I've never used any AK paints. Let's see here. Found a brown Sharpie works well for laser cut MDF and cardboard punch outs. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. Turbo Tacky sounds like some of my offices, or some of my clients' offices. There you go. Turbo Tacky is now my new go-to phrase at work. There you go. Hey, Uncle Adam, did you see the charity T-shirt on the Adepticon site? It's for Cathy Wapple, a hobby institution. Could you share it with the audience? I haven't seen it yet, but I will do. I will look for it and then share it like on Twitter and Facebook and stuff like that. Cathy is a hobby institution for sure. If you've ever been to Gen Con, you've probably come across Cathy Wapple, her and her husband, James Wapple, who's Wappleicious on Twitter. And if you've ever seen where all the painters hang out, kind of underneath the escalator in that one spot at Adepticon, that area is also known as Fort Wapple because they kind of run it. And Cathy's sick. She needs some, so we want to help support Cathy. So finished a 5 Parsec from home campaign and started a 5 leagues from the Borderlands. Have you looked into either? I own 5 Parsecs from home. I have not. I've looked at 5 leagues from the Borderland, the PDF, not the entire PDF, but just like if you go onto like any of those types of sites like DriveThruRPG or Wargame Vault and stuff like that, very frequently the title will have like the first 6-7 pages of a PDF, and then you can sort of scroll through it and it says sample across it, so you don't do anything illegal or whatever. But so I've looked at the beginning part of that, and the layout's very nice because the new version's from Modiphius and all that kind of stuff. It's still Nordic Weasel Games, designing and writing it, but then layout and art and all that, the fancy polished stuff, that's all being done by Modiphius on the new editions. Excuse me. So I have not played it or anything like that, but but 5 Parsecs is very cool. And they're all kind of, I don't want to say they're the same. They're all based off of the same kind of rule set. So, Mark thinks that Battlemasters was Milton Bradley, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it was one of the two. Yeah. So maybe Battlemasters is next. That'd be pretty cool. Now, the only problem would be is that Battlemasters originally, like I said, was a partnership, I believe, with Games Workshop. So that may not be something they could do anymore. I don't know. Although, Games Workshop and Hasbro worked together on that new 40K Magic the Gathering thing. So, I don't know. Anything could be possible, I suppose. Good stormy evening from the Philippines. Painting up some dead men of Dunharrow from Middle Earth. Nice. Recent announcement really tripped a lot of people's triggers locally. Sure, I can see that. Uncle Adam, have you had a chance to get into the Preface Your Press minis? I've seen some real nice pics of them online. I've looked at them, because you get them in the box, and then inside the box is a bunch of little, what do you call that stuff? Bubble wrap, little baggies and stuff like that. And so all the parts are in those little bubble wrap baggies. And I've opened up several of them and looked at a lot of the parts. I know that there was somebody online who had their parts hadn't been washed completely or something like that. So there was like this white residue and stuff like that. I don't have any of that going on in the parts that I've seen. The inside of the box smells like resin, like 3D printed resin, but everything that I've ever gotten that's come in a box that's had 3D printed resin smells like that. Like 3D printed resin has an odor to it a little bit, especially if it's trapped in a spot for a while, like a box, like as it gets shipped from wherever. Like whenever I've ordered anything from Etsy that someone's printed, and then I get it and you're like, oh yeah, there's that smell. So yeah, but otherwise the stuff looks pretty good. It'll be interesting to see. Let me see here. I get very sad every time I hear about someone getting sick in the US. It's sad that you guys have to beg for healthcare in your country. Yeah, I don't disagree. What setting / franchise do you think could benefit from a tabletop war game? I'd personally kill for a skirmish level game of the Dune universe. Yeah, that wouldn't be bad. That'd be kind of cool. We did a episode about this on the Game 4 podcast, actually. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of different things out there. I think that could be pretty cool, though. The new one, they just dumped all GW intellectual property. Sure. Hyped for Hero Quest and more Hero Quest. Yeah, there was a cool. They had this big, huge, because they got all the money in the world or whatever. Hasbro / Avalon Hill / whatever. Anyway, they had this huge, giant backdrop that they set up at Gen Con that looked like the cover of the Hero Quest box. And then there's that. There's that barbarian with the big sword that's all posed in there. Well, they had the sword there, like on a stick. So you couldn't move it or whatever, but you could grab onto it and then your friend could take a picture of you or whatever. I did not get a picture taken that way, but I took a couple for friends and stuff. So got my hands on some Cyberpunk Red Minis from Monster Fight Club. They're really nice. I like them a lot. They're like a little bit taller than I'm used to, but sometimes people are tall. I got a friend who's 6'6", so there you go. Just happens. I have to say I'm glad to see Privateer Press getting a good boost from the War Machine stuff. At least that means they will stay alive and keep making their best game, Monpok. I saw people playing Monpok there, like in the booth. They had a demo thing going on there, and that was pretty busy pretty much every time I walked by. I think the interesting thing about this new kind of stuff that they're doing with War Machine 4, then, the 3D printing thing, I am interested to see how that's going to turn out, because 3D printing is awesome, but it's kind of hard to do at scale. And when I'm talking about scale, I don't mean scale of the miniatures. I mean, we have to ship out 5,000 of these in 2 weeks. Like when you want to make a little dude and paint him in your basement or whatever, and then have him on your board, that's awesome. When you need to make a whole bunch of them, that becomes less awesome. But I think that is also changing. You're starting to get I did not get the feeling that they were just running a room full of like Elegoo Saturns or Anycubic Frozens. I get the feeling that they've got machines that are a little bit more on the industrial end, but they're still basically resin printers, The other thing that's interesting, and I think this is the more interesting part, at least in my mind, is that let's say you live in Europe and you would like to buy some Khador. You wouldn't be getting Khador that were printed in Seattle and then shipped over to Europe. You would be getting Khador that were printed in Europe and then shipped to Europe. So the concept of, instead of we have to have this stuff all manufactured in one spot and then sent all around the world to hobbyists all over the place, that is becoming, I think over the next 20, 30 years, that's going to become an idea that becomes a little bit more antiquated. Getting things printed closer to where the consumers will buy them makes more sense. Just because we're finding that shipping is becoming troublesome, and that boat got stuck in the Suez Canal, all that kind of jazz. So yeah. That's to me, that's the more interesting thing. There's a company in the United States called Every Little War, and they do laser cut MDF stuff. Well, they work with companies like far away in Europe or in Australia who make laser cut MDF stuff, but don't want to ship that heavy junk all the way to the US. They just work with them as a licensing thing and say, look, you send us the files, we'll cut them here, and then we'll put your name on it and our name on it and sell it. And then people in America, let's say, can buy your product without you having to ship it all the way over here. And then you guys get a royalty, or I don't know how exactly they handle it, but it's a smart plan when you're something that's like, it'd be like getting books it's like with the print on demand books that Vince and I are doing through Wargame Vault. They're printed in the United States, but they're also printed in the UK. Depending on where you live is where they get shipped and all that kind of stuff. So it makes a lot of sense. Question for Sci-Fi skirmish games What would be the core rules that would work, assuming there is ship combat for characters, pilot, mechanic, medic, and so on? I don't think I understand the question. What would be the core rules that would work, assuming there is ship combat for characters? I don't think I understand the question. I apologize. So sad the Game 4 podcast is gone. It's one of my favorites that I look forward to. Thanks to you and Matt for your contributions to the tabletop gaming community for the last 2 years. Yeah, no, I understand. You know, it's technically it's 3 years. We started the podcast in 2019, June, and so it's 2022. Yeah, that's 3 years. But yes, it was a decision. You know, we've been trying to figure out how to get Game 4 to be something that could be relaunched and also potentially in some way profitable. And we just couldn't figure it out at this point. It was just a situation of there's just, you know, even if we brought it back as a kind of a stripped down thing where we were going to like modularly add parts back on, like we would launch with like, let's say the store finder and looking for players and that's it. And then eventually add on this and that and the other thing, whatever. It was still just the issue that we're having currently at the business at Milk Can is that we kind of have too much business, like, which is a good thing to have. Don't get me wrong. It's a good problem. But as everybody here probably knows, it's real hard to find people to hire right now. So we have lots of billable stuff and we need more people. So that's kind of the issue. So before, when we did Game 4 the first time, we used a lot of what's known as bench time, which is a thing in development houses, places with lots of programmers. Sometimes you've got a project that ends here and the next project doesn't start for another 2 weeks or whatever the deal is and all that kind of stuff. And you have time to kind of sit around, and we're not going to tell you to get laid off and you go, you know, fly a kite. You're like, well, sometimes you're doing education, like, oh, I'm going to learn a new language, or I'm going to do, you know, programming language, that kind of stuff, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that, or whatever. So it was a lot of bench time. We're like, we've got some time here, work on Game 4. That's how the first one kind of got built. We don't have any bench time currently. So that's the other big issue. So when it was decided that we weren't going to be going forward, unfortunately, with Game 4, then we were like, well, the Game 4 podcast doesn't make as much sense. And it also is, I mean, it's a decent amount of work just coming up with subjects every 2 weeks and stuff like that, and whatever, and then recording it and then editing it and all the stuff that goes into that. And so, yeah, it is a bummer, but it is, it's the way it is right now. Never say never, you know, something may change. One of us might win the lottery. Who is to say? It seems unlikely since I don't play the lottery, but, you know, could still win. My chances of winning the lottery are almost as good as people who, you know, as a person who doesn't buy lottery tickets, are almost as good as people who do. So I really, honestly, mathematically, it's like I'm a multimillionaire already. Anyway. Given how I still can't get my printer to make a part correctly, Privateer's new business model still makes little sense any way you slice it. I think the issue is that they're also looking at it from the upfront cost. Upfront cost of redesigning all of their models and, you know, in plastic, and then paying for all of those molds is way higher than doing it the way they're doing it now. Now, again, if all of a sudden it becomes the most popular game in the world, they are going to get screwed because they won't be able to keep up with demand. But if the game is not that popular, but sort of, not so bad, they will hopefully be able to hold up with, you know. So we'll see how it goes. More local production from digital files is such a better way of doing things, for shipping, for the environment, for costs. Absolutely. It's a pity we had to have a pandemic to get companies to wake up. Yeah, you're not wrong. I agree. I really like that box of fencing that you got at Gen Con. That saves so much effort. They're very nice fences. I like them a lot. And I'm very glad that I was able to finally get them, to pick them up, because I've been seeing them, like I said, at shows for like a year. They had them at Gen Con last year. They had them at Adepticon. They had them at some other show I was at. And I was just like, when are these available for sale? And they're like, soon. Well, now they're finally available for sale. And if you've ever seen the buildings that they did the Kickstarter for too, they're like city buildings and stuff, and they're very modular and all that kind of stuff. Allegedly, those are going to go on sale and be available in stores by the end of August, I believe, is what I was told. And I did not back the Kickstarter at that time. But I'm looking forward to buying some of those buildings because they're pretty cool. The future is crowdsourced printing, large companies having their stuff printed by normal people and normal people getting paid by a contractor for those companies, torrents for 3D printing. Maybe. My concern is that big companies are going to be like, if big companies are depending upon chuckleheads like me to get stuff done, I could see them being real nervous about that. You know what I mean? Now, distributed printing like that for like, hey, I really like this STL file. I go to a website and say, I want someone to print this for me. And and it's almost like you know, like when you're buying something on Amazon and they're like, well, here's other people who are selling the same thing, and you kind of scroll through and find out like, oh, this is good, you know, or whatever. I could see that where you like literally like either upload a file and say, hey, I need this printed, or you find, you know, like this particular sculptor always puts their stuff up on this website where people can print stuff, and then you can find somebody who is closest to you who will charge the least for shipping and blah 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 and has a good rating. I could see that working. I just don't know about it for like actual businesses, because businesses like to hold on to their stuff or something. I don't know. Anyway, do you think there's potential for Game4 to partner with gaming companies and show which stores carry their products? I know this is something I struggle with here in rural Arkansas. We had talked about working with publishers to be able to work with them. The problem about working with stores is that stores are already dancing as fast as they can. Most stores are usually a person who runs the store and has to work with customers and has to order stuff and has to clean the bathrooms and has to pay the bills and all that stuff, and they don't have time for much of anything else. So going through and saying, hey, can you tell us all the different you know, items you have in your store so that people can come and buy them? They can see the benefit to that, but they're going to be like, I don't have that kind of time. Just tell them to give me a call and I'll see what I've got in stock, is basically the answer we're going to get in most of those situations, unfortunately. That being said, we wanted to work with publishers and be like, look, when you are running events for your whatever new game, some sort of free, you know, like, you know, events and stuff like that, or even charged events, tournaments and such, we would like people to be able to find them more easily. And we had some publishers that were like, yep, definitely on board. But there were others that are like, well, but we've already got it in our Facebook group. And we're like, okay, cool. Use Facebook. See how that works out for you. But yeah. Let's see here. I just started getting back into Blood Bowl game after a long break playing on the tabletop, and I'm really enjoying the painting side. Any tips on how to get better, or is it just practice? Generally, practice is what makes people better. And that sounds like I'm being facetious, but I'm not. It is literally the thing. Just, you know, watch some YouTube videos. Don't watch too many YouTube videos. You get much better actually putting, you know, brush to model than you do by watching 30 hours of you know, videos. Now, that being said, sometimes you're a person who's been painting for a while or whatever, and you watch some videos and you learn about a new technique and you're like, oh, that's really cool. But you haven't learned that technique. You've learned about that technique. You learn that technique when you actually sit down and do it. Like, after the game launches, I'm going to be I want to start learning a little bit more about oil washes. So I've purchased the stuff. That part's relatively quick. And I've watched some videos, but I'm not going to learn it until I actually sit down and do it. I'll have ideas on what I need to do, but you don't really learn it until you do it. So that's really the most important thing, is sitting down and just doing it. I also found that as I painted, I got better and better and better to a point, and then I hit a plateau. And then I got faster. Now, can I get better again? Sure. That's generally how most people, but you have to work a lot harder to get past that plateau as far as getting better and like trying to get into like display painting and, you know, Golden Demon territory and all that kind of stuff. I strongly believe that even if I tried really, really hard, I could never get there, because I think that the people who get up into that kind of Golden Demon kind of area they've got something else going on. Like they've got like an artistic bent to them. And I'm artistic. I mean, I hope, but I just don't know that I could get to that point. I don't know. I think that there's like a natural talent thing that you're kind of born with when you get to that point. I could be wrong. Maybe you could take somebody who's never painted before, and after 10,000 hours, they could win a Golden Demon. Or they could just be really good and not win a Golden Demon, but still be really happy with what they came up with. I'm generally pretty happy with the stuff that I paint, but I'm generally also targeting getting stuff done for the tabletop, so it's fine. But yeah, definitely practice is what makes you better, I guess, is the short answer. I just dry brushed silver over some gray trousers by accident. Now you have shiny pants. I don't hate it. It looks like polyester. Happy accident. Love your work. Well, thank you very much. See, happy accidents are fun. I appreciate that too. Let's see here. The fences aren't for sale on their website. Well, maybe they'll be launched at the same time as the buildings. That's weird. Huh. Maybe they just had them at Gen Con and they're going to be having them available. I was told that the buildings, and probably, well, if the buildings are going to be for sale and through distribution by the end of the month, then I'm assuming also the fences will as well. But they're real close. They're coming. Can't wait for the Drop Bears Kickstarter delivery. Looks like such an awesome game. I have not heard of Drop. I mean, I know what Drop Bears are. Irregulars this coming Saturday? Yes. Painting some 15mm sci-fi buildings and scatter for heavy gear blitz, hoping to get a scene going locally. Really keen on the game. You ever introduced a completely new game before? Yeah, I would say I have. I'm trying to think of which one it was. I think one of the most recent ones was probably Star Breach, and I got some people playing that for a while. But my earlier comment, I wasn't saying relying on the stores to tell you what they carry. I meant something similar to you can buy our products here pages that some companies have. I think that those pages are really hard for, well, two things. Number one, the companies that do that very frequently are their own distribution. So like Games Workshop can be like, oh, hey, you can buy our games at this store because they know they distribute directly to that store. Same with Magic the Gathering and D&D. Like they're their own distributor in that situation a lot of times, not always, but it just like you can also technically get Games Workshop stuff through a distributor and not directly from them. Like if you can't get what they call a contract from Games Workshop. Sometimes if your store is not big enough or if your store is too close to another store in your same town, Games Workshop will be like, no, we can't give you a contract. We already gave them a contract and it's a thing, whatever. But if you've got a contract from Games Workshop and you buy the same amount of stuff or whatever it is you need to hit that number, and now you've got a contract from them, you're ordering directly from Games Workshop for that stuff, which gives you a slightly better price or whatever. So they'll put you on the website and say, hey, you can buy our products here because they now have a relationship with you. But for smaller distributors, or sorry, for smaller publishers that go through regular distribution, they wouldn't be able to track that stuff very easily. If they were super on the ball, they would, but they could be like, well, we know that these guys have bought some of our board games before. I don't know if they have any in stock right now, or if it, it's a whole, it's tough. Gaddis Gaming, how you doing? I think I'm going to try out Alpha Strike. I kind of want to. I went by the Catalyst booth at one point during Gen Con, and I start walking into the booth, which was mostly, I mean, there was maybe, I don't know, they had a good sized booth, not including maybe some employees. There were maybe 8 people in there. So I start walking in, like they've got like this, it's all like, you can't just like walk in from any angle. There's like one spot where there's like, you can walk in through here. And I'm walking through and a guy like touches my arm. He's like, excuse me, sir. I'm like, yeah. He's like, there's a line. And I look over and there's a line of 12 people waiting to get into this booth that has like 8 people in it. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm like, I don't, like they were, as far as I could tell, they were literally the only, there was maybe one other booth that had a line that like, well, you could come into our booth after you stand in line. And maybe they were trying to do the 6 feet apart thing. That's fine. That being said, and I have a picture on my phone, I walked by a couple hours later and the booth was 3 times as full as it was when I walked by, and there was nobody, there was no bouncer and there was no line. So I'm like, okay, cool. Anyway, so I didn't go in at that time. And then, I walked around the side and they had these 2 tables set up over to the side and they had something on there that I didn't recognize. And I was looking at it, I'm like, oh, well, what's this? And the woman was like, oh, this is the new Alpha Strike box. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And she's like, yeah, it comes with all this stuff and this and this and this and these little tiny trees that are made out of cardboard, and it comes with all these things and some models and whatever. And I'm like, does it come with the hardcover book as well? Because I'm like, I already have a copy of the hardcover book. So, I wouldn't need 2 necessarily. She's like, no, the box does not come with the hardcover book. That's sold separately. I'm like, cool. All right. I appreciate that. And then I was like, how much is it? And she's like, well, it's not for sale. Of course. Sure. She's like, we had some on Thursday, but they sold out immediately. and they're not going to be available in stores until November. And I'm like, cool. So then I was like, okay, thank you. And then I left. And that seems to be every time that I go there and I'm interested, maybe just dipping the toe a little bit more into BattleTech. It's always like, well, we don't have it now. I mean, it's not. And so this was another year of that. And so I don't know what to say. It is what it is. So maybe someday. They are also relaunching Leviathans, which is cool. I like that game quite a bit. It's giant flying battleships in an alternate World War I kind of thing, which is pretty cool. I think it's in a Kickstarter currently, of course. But yeah. So if you dig that kind of game, then that would be the type of game that you would dig. Alpha Strike is great. Best way to play BattleTech for sure. The other thing, too, that I don't... Because there was a lot of people playing BattleTech at Gen Con. There always is. Big, huge boards full of people playing. A dozen people standing or sitting around, like a huge battle. Never a lick of terrain. Not a single... It's just played on a giant grid, and a giant hex grid. And there's like, there's elevations maybe, or this... But there's never like... And I just don't enjoy playing games that don't have terrain. I specifically don't really particularly enjoy playing games on a grid, like especially hex. It's okay, but in general, I would prefer not to. Which is the benefit of Alpha Strike, is that I don't believe that you play it on a hex grid, and you can have some terrain, and that's cool too. I just prefer the look of that. But I got to admit, every year there's always people at Gen Con, just big, huge tables full of people, just like, it is just, I have some pictures on my phone, but it's just literally just big, it's like a 6 foot by 8 foot table, just covered in hexes with, 24 mechs on there and not a lick of anything else. And that to me is just not getting me involved in the game. Personal preference, but there you go. Let's see here. I have to buy my hobby stuff in person in physical stores. I have no means for electronic payment methods. Gotcha, sure. I find watching videos only really helps me with things I would not think of. As for actual paint skill, I fully agree. Practice makes perfect. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You've probably already said, but are you getting Heart of Gur? Yes, I already have Heart of Gur. I made a video about it 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, whenever it was, I could make a video about it. I forget exactly, but yeah, I do have it. I have not built anything from it yet, unfortunately. The terrain, I don't know. There's something just aesthetically about the terrain that does not spark as much joy in this guy as much as the original box set. But that has been the case since they launched the game. They launched that original game. I love the terrain that was in the original box set. I've painted it. I enjoy it. I have another set of just the terrain from the original box set that I'm eventually going to build and paint, maybe differently. Maybe I'll paint it the same. I don't know. The stuff that came out in Catacombs, some of that stuff was from the original box set, so that stuff was fine. Red Harvest, it didn't do much for me. All those little scaffoldings and like conveyor belts and stuff like that. I don't know, but something about it just was like meh. And now this new stuff with the meat trees and it's okay. It's just not quite. I don't know. I'm being weird about it, but there you go. Good morning, sir. First time making it here in 2 years. Wow, nice. Good to see you here, Iron Fist Studio. Catalyst really need to up their production. I managed to get the rules by blind luck, but I had to print my own figures. I mean, I understand, when a company is like, look, we can't get this stuff because we produce everything in China, and boats and shipping containers and all that stuff are super hard to come by, and things are stuck in ports. Like, I still very strongly believe that the reason that the compendium for Warcry didn't come out, and the reason that they had to release it as PDF, is because it's stuck on a boat somewhere or on the bottom of the ocean. Sometimes container ships carrying lots of containers get into bad seas and stuff falls off, and then there you go. Now fishes are playing Warcry or whatever. we don't know. The fact that they were like, it's coming out, and then they were like, oh, it's not coming out. I mean, again, and they've not told me anything, so I don't know. But the fact that they were planning on launching it in August, and now they're like, sometime in the future, way in the future, and we've got nothing else from that, it's a production issue. And it's not Games Workshop dropping the ball. It's just where we live right now. You know what I mean? So yeah, when a company like Catalyst is like, well, we only had 12 of them and we sold all the first 3 minutes of Gen Con, and now we don't have any until November. Again, like I said, it's par for the course. It would be awesome if that wasn't the case, but I can't be mad because we live in the timeline in which we live in, unfortunately. So there you go. I was going to get a couple of those Infinity Scenery packs for use with Stargrave. Good thing is they have a bunch of them in stock in my FLGS. Forgot to look at the price, though. Well, yeah. HeroScape is perfect for BattleTech terrain. I know what you're saying. I never got into HeroScape, and it looked kind of cool, but it also looked real fiddly messing with all those little axes and building those little hills and all that stuff. I'm glad people dig it. It was never exactly for me. You can play BattleTech Hexless as well. Yeah, but nobody ever seems to. I don't know what that is. You can play BattleTech with terrain if you want. I mean, you can dance if you want to. There's a lot of things you can do, certainly. But, like, it seems to be the standard if you're going to be playing it some places. We play it on hexes and we play with no terrain. And so, I mean, obviously I can do what I want, sure. But then I have to basically convince the people around me, no, this is the way we're going to be playing and all that kind of stuff. Again, it seems a little bit easier with Alpha Strike. So hopefully someday we'll see. Did you see anything about Corvus Belli? I did. I stopped by their booth. I watched a bit of a game of Warcrow Adventures. I believe that's what it's called. So Warcrow Adventures, they've recently released, and they even did a battle report, I think, or something like that. And the Warcrow Adventures is, what am I trying to say? It's like a dungeon crawler. So it's their new fantasy game from the people who make Infinity. It's not out yet, but it's coming soon. And it's initially going to be a dungeon crawler. And me and a friend and I were in there, and he was talking to a guy that he vaguely knows. My friend knows this guy who was there, like, volunteering at the, you know, like at the booth there for Corvus Belli. And evidently, like, the normal skirmish war game is going to come out after the initial dungeon crawl. So there will be a skirmish war game version of Warcrow, which will maybe just be called Warcrow, whereas Warcrow Adventures, it seems like it's going to be just a dungeon crawl. So that's kind of cool. My concern, at least about the dungeon crawl, is that it requires you have to use an app to play. It's not like a companion app where you can use it and it's useful, but you don't have to use it. It seems like, at least from the battle report that I watched, you have to use the app to play. That's kind of a red flag sometimes. I mean, it's not like it's a bad game. It's just that in 6 years, that app might not be supported anymore. You know, I've already been stung by that. I was big into Golem Arcana, and now I have a whole bunch of models and stuff like that that I literally can't play the game with anymore because the game can't be played without the app. So that has taught me a lesson, is what that has done right there. Original Warcry Terrain was the bomb, and that is very true. I agree. If you had to rank the demos you played by least interested to most, what would that list look like? At Gen Con, I honestly didn't get a chance to really play a demo. I watched a bunch of demos, but people were real busy. Like, there was a lot, like, there were times when I was like, oh, I want to sit down and get a demo for this. And then it was just like, there's no seats. There's like, you know, there was a lot of people who were really hungry to get into demos and stuff this year. So that was kind of a bummer. But like I said, I did watch a bunch. Painting terrain is a bit of a hurdle for me. Well, then maybe you might want to take a look at hashtag not sponsored stuff from TinkerTurf. In Friday's video, I talked about TinkerTurf as one of the things that I brought back. These are pre-printed cardboard pieces of terrain. It's not cardboard per se, not like corrugated cardboard. It's more like chipboard, thick chipboard. And you pop out all these parts, and then you glue it together with some PVA glue, and you clamp it real quick to let it dry, and then boom, you have terrain, and you don't have to paint it. So that's pretty cool stuff. Let me see here. Steel Warrior Studios for BattleTech Terrain, amazing hex grid system. Huh. Let's see here. I'm really looking forward to Maladum Dungeons of Ever. Not. I don't even know what that is. Is that the new Lord of the Rings thing that they talked about? I didn't catch any of that. They like announced it during Gen Con, but not at Gen Con. It was like on Twitch. I personally was sold on the Heart of Gerbach set as soon as I saw the train. It'll go great with the spooky horror games. I have planned to play in October. Yeah, that's true. It would definitely be spooky horror games. That makes for sure. And again, I'm not saying it's bad terrain. I'm just saying aesthetically, I like the other original stuff so much better, personally. But yeah. Relatively new viewer here. At Gen Con, I stopped by the DGS Games booth and looked at the Freeblades. Oh yeah, Freeblades. Yeah, didn't get a demo. Ever heard of it? Opinion? I played a demo of Freeblades like years ago at Adepticon. So I don't know if that's the most recent version. I don't know if they've changed versions recently or not. So I don't know. I remember it being kind of a fun, like the demo we were doing was a little bit like a dungeon crawl. It wasn't just like we're all standing out in a field shooting at each other or whatever, that kind of thing or whatever. It was a little bit more dungeony, which was cool. So yeah, it's and there's zillions of models. Like they just keep making more and more models. You have lots to choose from. But yeah, they had a booth at I saw it at Gen Con. As being required or a no-go for me, I play tabletop games to get away from tech and screens and phones. Again, like I said, a companion app, I got no problem with. We build companion apps at work sometimes. There's a game there's a video game called Cuphead, which was popular. And then there was a tabletop game based off of Cuphead made by a company called The Op, which used to be USAopoly, but they've changed their name. Anyway, it was called the Cuphead Fast Rolling Dice Game. It's a game you can get in stores now. It's been out since last Gen Con, actually. And there's a free companion app that you can download that basically is the timer, and it also plays some of the music from the game, and it has artwork from the game. And then at the end, then you can say, we did this and this and this and this, and it will give you the score, so you don't have to do it on paper if you don't want to. But you can totally do it on paper. You can use the timer on your watch or your phone or whatever. But this free app is a nice little add-on. We built that. Milk Can, the company I work for, we built that because we worked with the op and they paid us to build it and stuff. But again, it doesn't require that app for the game. It is a companion app. That's the difference. Companion apps usually do stuff like timers and score, and they automate things to make things easier, but you can still do it without it. There are plenty of games out there. Well, you're starting to see more and more games out there where like this tabletop game can't be played without the app. And I think that doesn't make a lot of sense personally. Nonetheless, Tinker Turf is amazing. My FLGS sells it. Nice. I'm happy the new War Machine app will let you print the cards from the app. So long as you print your cards regularly, you'll have an up-to-date rules whenever the app disappears. Yes, that's true too. Again, I don't mind, like, if they also put the cards up as PDFs on their website, I'm fine. I'm totally fine using the app to keep track of, like, I use Battlescribe for when I play Warcry, like, because it's just for two reasons. Number one, it's on my phone. It's simpler. I don't have to mess around with those cards or trying to figure out where in the book I am and all that kind of stuff. It's just really nice. Secondly, they translate those little icon symbols into words. So that's actually really nice. So when you build a list in Warcry, or in Battlescribe for Warcry, it will show you the affiliated special abilities just for the people you have. When you are playing a normal game of Warcry and you have your people, whatever, who's ever in your warband, you'll be like looking at all the abilities that this particular faction has, and you're like, oh, that's a good. Wait, do I have anybody that has that symbol? It's like a skull with a smiley face. Gonna look through all my cards for skull with smiley face. I'm like, oh, I don't have anybody who can do that. That's a bummer. When you use Battlescribe, it only shows you the special abilities for guys that you have in your warband, so it doesn't show you any that you can't use, which is actually quite nice. So that's why I use it. I'm fine with that. I wish GW had an app for their games. That would be great. I know they do. Other than the Age of Sigmar one, they mostly are not good from what I understand. So yeah, that's how that works. Maladum is the new Battle Systems core space fantasy game. I don't think I know what core space is. Like the name sounds familiar, but I think I'm misunderstanding what it is. I thought core space was like a PDF game that I had seen on Wargame Vault, but I hear about it from time to time, and I should really look it up, as I don't know what that is. What do you think of the new Kill Team box? I mean, the stuff that they've showed off, it was cool to see the stuff in person at Gen Con. That was kind of cool. They had those walls and stuff. I posted some of that stuff on Twitter and Instagram, whatever. It's going to be interesting to see, like, because they're planning on making it so over the next series of releases, they're just going to keep putting more and more walls in. So if you buy like this new upcoming box, and then the next 2 or 3, I forget exactly how many, and then at the end you'll have a whole buttload of that's a technical term, by the way, a whole buttload of walls, and be able to literally almost make your own Space Hulk game, I guess, or something. I don't know. You're just going to have a lot of plastic that you're going to have to paint for sure, and it'll all match. That's kind of nice, you know. That's sort of cool. Like, I think it's a smart idea for them to use the Kill Team kind of system if they're going to be releasing a box every quarter anyway, making it so that the terrain sort of works together. So you're not just like, oh, in this one we got these things, and this thing we got those things, and they don't go together at all. Like, making them go together kind of makes sense. You know what I mean? So yeah, it'll be real interesting. I definitely plan to use the Gur terrain and Rain in Hell. That would actually work quite well. Good point. Yeah, no, that's a very good point. The Gur terrain would actually work pretty well. Meat trees? Yeah. Oh, sure. I could definitely see that. That would definitely work. Good idea. Can't say I tend to find terrain companies make great games, but happy to be proven wrong. Yeah. Are your new rules still hoping for Cat Police coming soon? The new rules are not Cat Police, sadly. But yes, very soon. In the next couple of weeks, let's just say that. We'll just, that's the plan at least. So yeah. You can keep apps forever so long as you keep the device. I have a decade-old Lego game that still works because I don't abandon the device. Technically, yes, that is true. And also, you have to make sure your device doesn't auto-update the OS either, because that can also make it so that an app stops working. So yeah, you can do that as long as you have a very old phone that you don't ever have on Wi-Fi anymore, so it doesn't try to auto-update or whatever, and you keep it away from everything else, possibly in a small box underneath your bed. Then yes. But as a person who's worked in the app space now for quite some time, I know apps don't last forever. And that's part of the issue. That's why I like games that are just a rule book. I get to decide what to use. Yeah, absolutely. Let's see here. 50 million weird little icons are the worst part of Warcry. I would have thought the second edition they would have found a way to get away from that. Yeah. An app to me is still a dish you order before the main course. Officially a dinosaur. I'm proud of it. Oh, sure. Yeah. See, but those are appetizers or appetizers. Tasty. I definitely performed too many powerful attacks when playing Warcry because I was looking at the wrong skull with spikes icons. That is for sure. Core Space is a sci-fi dungeon crawl that uses the battle system sci-fi terrain. Battle system, like the Mantic stuff? Is that what that is? Like the modular, boxy Mantic stuff? I have a bunch of that stuff, painted even. It's pretty cool. I like it. Snapships is a fun game that I tried a demo of at Gen Con. X-Wing mixed with large-scale Lego for assembling. Yeah, I saw that originally at... Where did I see it originally? Did I see it at Gen Con last year? I might have. I might have seen it at Gen Con last year. Yes, I did. It was, but they didn't have a game yet. They just had a bunch of the cool ships, and they were like, hey, check this stuff out. We're going to make a game for it. I'm like, hey, that sounds cool. And then I went to PAX in Boston back in April, and they're like, hey, now we have a game, and we're doing demos. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then they had even more of that going on at Gen Con this year. I don't think they were at Adepticon. No, I don't think they were. Well, I don't think they were. Anyway, yeah, so it is. It's a game. It's like, it's not Legos per se. It's like, 'cause with Legos, you could be like, I'm going to make a spaceship or a house. These are little tiny modular spaceship parts that they would make a weird looking house if you went that, you know what I mean? Like they're parts for making different weird spaceships and all kinds of stuff like that. And then they've attached a game to it. That's, yeah, kind of like X-Wing, but bigger, because like like X-Wing, like, you know, an actual X-Wing's like that big, right? Maybe a little bigger. You know, and you sure you got your Millennium Falcons and stuff like that. But these ships are all good sized because they're, you know, but I don't know. Yeah, people seem to dig it so far. I think it'll be real interesting to see where that goes. Was there any Flames of War news drops or just what has been said on the official site? Did I even see Flames of War there? They might, well, because Gale Force 9 / Battlefront are the same company. I'm trying to remember if I saw Gale Force 9 / Battlefront's booth. I may just be remembering last year's Gen Con. I'm sure they were there, but I don't remember seeing. The thing is that the dealer area is so vast that there was stuff still on Sunday when I was taking a walk through again where I'm like, well, I've never seen this. You know, and I'd be like, have you guys been here all weekend? And they're like, yeah, we've been here since like last week or whatever. And you're like, okay, cool. Well, somehow I've missed you. Like, I've walked through this place how many times and I've missed this booth. And it's the way that they build it. Like, Vince and I were talking about this. What they need to do is make it a perfect grid and never block up the middle with big booths. If you're some big company and you want to have a big booth, cool, you get an entire aisle. But don't make it so that I'm walking down the aisle and then there's a stopping point and I have to walk around your booth, because then that screws me all up and then I miss this company that sells dungeon scented candles or whatever. I don't know. There's a lot of little booths that I would miss completely because, you know, like it took me forever to find the CEOcast booth, but that's because it was way back in a corner facing a wall. Like they had done something wrong, which I felt bad about, but still I did eventually find them. But yeah, Vince and I are like, I think when we start running the world, what we're going to do is make it at Gen Con. If you want to have a huge booth, you just get an entire aisle, Hasbro or whatever, but you don't block. Then I still get to walk up and down the grids like an American. I know that we are big on the gridded cities and stuff like that. And in Europe, that's not so much the case, but yeah, it is helpful when you're trying to look at everything all at once. It takes a long time. It's not all at once. Nonetheless, I don't know. What did you think of the new BattleTech box sets? Did they live up to the hype? I never really got to go into the booth because there was a bouncer. And so, except for later when there wasn't, and then I didn't go in. So I didn't actually see any of the new box sets, except for I did see the Alpha Strike box set like outside of the booth, which was weird. They kind of had like a table outside of the booth, so you didn't have to go through the bouncer, I guess. And it looks kind of cool, but they didn't have it for sale, so I couldn't, you know. Let's see here. Core Space is a sci-fi skirmish game that uses modular cardboard terrain. Huh. I'll have to look into that. Battle Systems is the cardboard one. Snapships was at PAX East this year. Yep, that's for sure. Need Lego D&D. That'd be kind of cool. Terrain Crate is Mantix. I've got some Terrain Crate stuff from Mantic. BattleTech box sets live up to the hype. Everything you need to get playing in the box. Excellent value and starting point. Well, there you go. No BattleTech... No, Battle Systems isn't the Mantic Terrain Trades. Battle Systems is a card stock terrain. Back the Kickstarter for the fantasy stuff. I've never heard of that. Wasn't it called... I swear Mantic's, like, the stuff that came in Dead Zone, I thought that was called Battle Systems at one point. Wasn't it? Or was that called Battle something else? I don't know. I think people got to come up with better names. That's what they got to do. It seems hard to know where to go after the BattleTech box set. Is there a core book? Unfortunately, I don't know. I love Gale Force 9 terrain. Yeah, I have a bunch of their pre-painted Battlefield in the box stuff. It's quite nice. Anything good from Warlord at Gen Con? I'm hoping for more new stuff from Conflict 47. Someone told me they found their booth. I never did. Yeah, no, I never found their booth. So if they had a booth, I didn't see it. But a friend of mine was like, oh yeah, no, I think I came across it. So I'm like, well, that's, you know. I just don't think that Gen Con is necessarily Warlord's show. You know, like Adepticon, yeah, you definitely spot them at Adepticon. They take up a good amount of space at Adepticon. Gen Con, it's kind of hard, I think, for wargamers at Gen Con. Like, there was definitely a good-sized Star Wars Legion tournament going on. I know there were people playing. There was a 40K tournament, but it wasn't massive, you know. Like, going to any one of the other smaller conventions like Nova, Adepticon, Las Vegas Open, all those, you're going to get 40K tournaments that are 10 times the size of what you're going to have at Gen Con. There's just so much other stuff going on at Gen Con. That's the trick. If Gen Con is in Europe, there'll be a roundabout. I mean, we're getting roundabouts here too. But yeah, I know what you're talking about. Gen Con has the best selection of vendors I've ever seen at a con, but also the worst dealer room layout I've ever seen. Yeah, because again, you'd be walking up and down the aisles, and then there's somebody who paid a bunch of money for a huge booth that's like sits right in the middle, and then you're like, well, now I have to go around, and then yeah, that's the problem. Dungeon scented candles, a great gift. I swear to God, last year there was a company that made like D&D themed candles and stuff like that, like campfire or you know, cozy tavern and stuff like that. Like it wasn't like orc. I don't think they made smells like that, but they made other smells that you'd be like, oh, okay, this is. And I guess you could burn those candles and then make the smells nice when you're doing your RPG session, and then it smells like a tavern where you have to go talk to the tavern owner. You know, what did you think of the big blow up urban mech? It was pretty big. I was kind of surprised it wasn't like gray. Like it was bright yellow and green and red and stuff like that. And I don't know, again, me not being a big BattleTech guy, I would always assume that they would be painted like, I mean, it seems dumb to paint a vehicle that large camouflage. Especially in the sci-fi future where you're probably got scanners and stuff going on. You'd be like, oh, it's right over there. I can see it on the scope, you know. So it's always been interesting to go just like super bright colors, but it seems to be the thing that people do because they're like, well, then now you know who's who, you know, like whose team is who and who's on what, you know, mercenary group or whatever, I guess. That makes sense, I guess. But it looked expensive. I mean, it must have been expensive to make. Catalyst has always had supply issues at Gen Con. I was hoping to get their new BattleTech stuff at Gen Con 2014, but they sold out in less than a half hour. Yeah, I mean, that's just always been, and I don't know if that's a thing that they do on purpose to try to build hype. I don't know if that kind of thing works or not. Maybe it does. I was talking with a friend of mine, one of the guys that I was staying with when we were there, and he works at game stores down near Milwaukee. It's a small chain of game stores down there. And he was saying that, like, when they get a new order of BattleTech stuff in, he says it lasts about 3 days and it's pretty much all gone. So, you know, it's selling, and that's cool. So good on him. I just don't know, like, because I said, I'm like, well, have you played recently? He's like, no. Like, do people play in the store? He's like, sometimes. So I don't know. It must be a lot of basement gamers, just people playing at home or playing in their garage or whatever, which is great. That's also, I mean, that still works awesome. But yeah, no, I just wish that they would have better supply at Gen Con or in general. In general, their supply has gotten better, like for stores and distribution and things like that. But I don't know. I'm of the age at this point now where if you're going to come and show me a thing at Gen Con that I can't get until November, I kind of wished you would have just waited till November. You know what I mean? Like, just announce it then. I don't know. But I am unaffected by hype as I get older too, which is one of the reasons why, like, Vince and I, for our game, we don't, there's been hype in that we were telling you we're making a game and we've been vague about like what it's about, but you're not going to find out about it until the day you can order it. Like, as opposed to us, like, you know, like video game companies for a long time, I've been like, oh, we got this game, it's going to be awesome. Here's what it's called. This is what it's about and all that kind of stuff. And you're like, oh, cool. When can I get it? I don't know, 2-3 years maybe. We don't want to do that. We'll be like, now you know, now you can get it. Done. That's what I would like to see more in the industry, frankly. Any Marvel Crisis Protocol presence at Gen Con this year? Yeah, I was in the Asmodee booth, I think, at one point. And I watched a couple different games. There was like 2 different tables going on of demos of Marvel Crisis Protocol, and had good looking terrain. I liked it. And yeah, I watched some of that. So there was that, but I didn't see like I don't think that Atomic Mass had their own booth or anything like that. It was part of the, you know, larger Asmodee umbrella, if you will. BattleTech has what you'd call a bolt-on rules system. Everything beyond the basic rule set is entirely optional, but it can get insanely detailed. It's up to you and your group. Sure, makes sense. It's a good idea. Good way to go it. Good way to go it? That's not Those aren't words. Let's see here. Looked like my mercenaries, so I was A-okay with the big yellow urban boy. There you go. Bright colors to let those about to die know who is killing them. Battle system started with printed cardboard terrain, but core space is their full-fledged skirmish game, full with sci-fi crews, enemies, loot, playable. Huh, I'll have to check it out. Looks like a child of a mech and the Michelin Man. A little bit, yeah. I think the urban mech is the same color as the plush. There's a plush? Huh, that's cool. Whoa, this guy does live stuff too? Indeed, I do the Every Other Sunday show, generally every other Sunday, although it has been 3 weeks since the last one because I was at Gen Con. And I also stream on Twitch as well. 2 days a week. I do Mondays at 7 p.m. Central, which is in the evening, for 3 hours, and also Friday at 10 a.m. Central. And I paint miniatures mainly and talk to people and answer questions and stuff like that. And I do that over at twitch.tv/tabletopminions. I'll be doing it again tomorrow night. Yes, tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Central. Unwashed Autumn Halfling. That sounds like a terrible candle. I don't want any of that. Giant robots don't make a lot of sense anyway, so painting them bright pastel colors is just as good as any other scheme. Yeah, no, I get it. I totally, yeah. I've never quite understood, like, why would we build a like, I mean, I get, okay, so you can walk over fences, maybe? But did anyone ever see, it was this little indie movie called The Empire Strikes Back. And they had big walking robots and a farm kid in a glider, basically, with a rope on it, knocked that thing down. So I'm just saying, it would be very easy, I would think, especially two-legged ones, to knock them down, I would assume. Tanks are way harder to knock down, in my mind. Anyway. I personally think Catalyst can be a little clueless about how hype BattleTech is. Maybe. One of the local shops have a large display full of BattleTech. I didn't know it was taking off again. Yeah, it does seem to be to some degree, so that's cool. Mech pilots are supposed to be like the knights of old, hence bright heraldry. Yeah. You know, I've never understood the whole concept of, like, royalty in the future. Like, to me, it seems like there's plenty of, it's a trope that's been going on forever. Obviously, you see stuff like that in 40K. You see stuff like that in BattleTech. You see stuff like that in Dune. You have this royalty, and then there's other people who are, and I'm like, but it's way in the future. Shouldn't we all be like over that by this point? The whole monarchy thing. It makes way more sense to me that you've got the mega corporations that are running everything, and everybody else is like a peon and whatever. Like that, sure, I get behind that. We're halfway there already. I get that. But like the whole concept, like I read a book recently by someone, I don't remember who. I can't remember the name of the person who wrote it, but there are 2 books. There was Gideon the Ninth, and there was Harrow the Ninth, or Harrowhark the Ninth, one of the 2. There's 2 books, and they were cool. And it was like, there was some magic, and there was like necromancy, but it's way in the future, and there's spaceships and stuff like that. But there's still like dukes and like, other royalty and lords and this and that and the other thing, but it's in the future. And I've always just been like, I wouldn't think that that's the direction we go, but I don't know. I'm not a writer, I guess. Nonetheless, whenever I see like a game like, Shadowrun or something like that with like, or Cyberpunk with giant megacorps and stuff like that running everything, like that makes more sense than royalty, frankly. Like a new Space Marine video game, no idea when it's going to be released, but I know I don't care about it. But I know I kind of don't. I want the new game, but I'm not. I know that allegedly the new Dark Tide game is coming out in September-ish, I believe, which is like, if you ever played Vermintide, it's the same thing, except instead of shooting rats, you're going to be shooting cultists, plague bearers. I don't know, whatever. It's fine. It'll be more sci-fi, and it'll be shooting more stuff very quickly, which is fine. I'm on board. Honestly, they could have been like, hey, this is this new game. You get to do this thing. It's available today. I would have bought it just as quickly, or whatever. You know what I mean? The reason for hype, from what I understand, has been then companies, you know, websites and whatever, Kotaku, Polygon, all those folks have something to talk about. So you get free advertising, kind of. I'm assuming that's where it comes from. Yeah. As a consumer, I'm annoyed by pretty much all of it. So was that Gen Con? Bummed I didn't catch you or recognize you, man. Well, I mean, you know, with the masks, it's hard, but I still was recognized surprisingly a decent amount. I'm trying to plan a trip to a convention next year, but I can't decide which to go to. I'm most interested in mini-agnostic skirmish games and or small publishers. Which con would you suggest? Adepticon? Yes, Adepticon. Probably Adepticon. Yeah. Now, if you are into miniatures, but also into RPGs, or also into board games, or also, then Gen Con's maybe more your jam. If you're just interested in miniatures, and you're just then I would say Adepticon for sure. Do you know of anything like Gen Con or Adepticon on West Coast or near Seattle? Well, there's the Las Vegas Open, which is about 2,000 to 3,000 people, and it's just miniatures. It's very heavily into 40K, but there's other stuff there as well. But that one's the only one that's kind of that direction that I know of. There's maybe that's the biggest one. There's, I think, also Bay Area Open, which is going to be Seattle. Well, not Seattle, sorry. San Francisco-ish, I think. I've never been to that one. But it's run by the same people who run Las Vegas Open. But I think it's smaller and just more tournament-oriented. But Las Vegas Open is still very tournament-oriented. It's probably the largest 40K tournament in the world. 2020 was the last time that I was there, because it was just before the pandemic, because it's usually in January or February. And I think that their 40K championship was like 840 players or something crazy like that. I mean, just the number of tables you need for that many people is astounding. But yeah, so that's a big thing. But they also have people there playing War Machine and Bolt Action and Flames of War and this and that and all that kind of stuff. But everything is dwarfed by how big that tournament is. But yeah, that's probably the best one that I can think of on the West Coast. I was going to say the left coast, which is, you know, it's on the left side of the country if you're looking at it that way. Unless you're looking south, then it's on the right side of the country. I just got my Vallejo paint today. Today's the day I paint. Nice. Good to hear. Greetings from Finland. I'm a little bit late, currently painting Night Haunt and trying contrast paints for the first time. Contrast paints can work real well on Night Haunt, for sure. Ewoks took down the two-leggers with some logs, I remember. Yeah, exactly. There you go. To say nothing of the square cube law with giant robot. Yeah, there's that too, obviously. I mean, I'm assuming they're all like hand-waving that away and going, oh, well, yes, we've figured that out with science, which, you know. English are sticking with monarchy in spite of them mostly being as useful as a fart in an elevator. Sure. Spider tanks would work better. That's true. Yeah, more legs. But again, difficult. Yeah. Let's see here. BattleTech royal houses make sense. Big mechs are dangerous. Royal houses are owned by people with the big mechs, so they control the power. I was skeptical till I read into it. I just think that companies instead would just take over instead of these royal houses. The whole concept of royalty seems weird in the future. It just doesn't make any sense. We have space royalty, and it's Elon Musk. I don't know that that's the case. Spider tanks does whatever spider tank does. There you go. Star Wars setting has an emperor and a royal class of nobles. Hard to cite a setting without some sort of. I know, that's what's so weird. Like, you got Lord Vader and, like, you know, this and that and whatever. And it's just, yeah, it's odd. Let's see here. I had coworkers super into the royal weddings, and I was like, didn't we fight a war to not care about this? I mean, yeah. There's a four-legged Robodog by Boston Dynamics. A spider tank could be reality. Or, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's the thing. Like, small, like, robot dog things, like that thing from Boston Dynamics, like, that makes sense in certain situations. Like, it can go upstairs. and it can climb through rubble a little bit more easily, in theory, you know, which is good for when you're trying to find survivors in a crashed or like a ruined building or something like that or whatever. So like small stuff, yeah. But now take that thing and make it, you know, 40 meters high. Well, there's no stairs it's going to climb. It's just going to step on stuff. And again, you got the square law thing and all that jazz. Yeah, that definitely. The opens or cons? I thought they were just tournaments. I don't know about Bay Area Open or any of the other ones except for Las Vegas Open. But yes, Las Vegas Open is like, it's mostly a big 40K tournament, but then there's also other GW games tournaments like Age of Sigmar, Kill Team. I don't know if there was Warcry last time. Like Warcry was out, but last time I was there, which was 2020, I don't remember if they had a Warcry tournament or not. But I know they had Kill Team tournament and Age of Sigmar tournament and 40K tournament, obviously. But then they also had Malifaux, I remember seeing, and Bolt Action. I watched a game for a while of a game made by a company from England called Two Fat Lardies, and it was a game called What a Tanker. I watched that for a while. That was kind of fun. There was other stuff going on. There's a small vendor area. Like, it's not bad. It's a decent vendor area. It's not, you know, Gen Con sized or even particularly Adepticon sized. But again, Adepticon's like 6,000-ish people. And generally, I think that Las Vegas Open is 2,500. So, you know, take that to scale. But yeah, there's other stuff going on there besides just the tournament for sure. And again, that's Las Vegas Open. Last time I was there, which was 2020. I did not go in 2022 this year. I did not go in. Well, they didn't have it in 2021, I don't think. I know they didn't have it in I don't think they had it in 2021. They had it at the Rio in 2022, I believe, this early January, which it used to always be at the Bally. And the Rio was not great as a venue, from what I understand. Like, there wasn't enough restaurants. There was like 2 and a Starbucks, which was problematic when you needed to eat in between rounds if you were part of the tournament, from what I understand. I watched a video from a guy who attended and was like, Rio's not great. Let's see here. Isn't the biggest faction in BattleTech a company Comstar? That sounds familiar, but I have no idea. I mean, I've heard of Comstar. I don't know if it's a company or not. You don't think Bezos would put on a crown if he could? Well, it would. I mean, he could. Lord knows. He could put on a crown. That doesn't mean anyone has to pay attention to him, though. What's people's thoughts on USB airbrushes? I'm looking for a good priming option I can take outside or whatever, but reviews are all over the place with them. I own one of those where it's like an airbrush on top of a thing that kind of looks like a can of Red Bull, and it's the compressor, and you charge it with the USB, right? The airbrush didn't work, but that's fine. I just unscrewed it and put on my regular airbrush, and that worked fine. But the airbrush, like literally as soon as I turned it on, the airbrush was just blowing, and the trigger action didn't do anything to stop it or make it better or anything. It just was like, psh, and I'm like, but no, I'm not pushing the button, and it just was like, nah. Anyway, so the airbrush was garbage, but I could just easily unscrew it and then screw on my Iwata airbrush, and it worked fine. I've never recharged it because I never used it much. I just was like, wanted to try it out and stuff like that. And I haven't used it much. But one of the Patreon supporters in the Discord last year or earlier this year mentioned that they also had one of those. And when they were charging it, it exploded. So just be careful of that. Like, it went boom, and I think he said that it landed in the chair that his sister had just been sitting in. So she was like sitting in like a lazy boy or something, like a recliner or whatever, and had got up to go do something. And then this thing went boom and then landed in the chair. It would have landed on her. And that would have been bad. So, yeah. So I don't know. There's something to think about. But technically that can happen with any kind of like lithium ion battery from what I understand. But I think cheap ones, it can happen more. So CFO Vader doesn't have the same ring to it. I don't know. That's spookier, frankly. Was it Gen Con on Saturday? Was my first convention and I had a blast. Any advice for Adepticon? It's considerably smaller. Like this year, Gen Con was 50,000 plus. Adepticon's like 6,000, so it's considerably smaller, but it's still a good idea to bring a decent pair of shoes. Probably be doing a lot of walking. Feudalism in space makes sense if we think of governing a galactic empire as so complicated that local feudal lords have as much power over their lands as medieval feudal lords. Again, I would think it would be more like governors or, again, more of a corporate structure personally, but... Squat, ugly powered armored suits for flying at close range in tunnels and mines. Could it happen? Who's to say? Let's see here. In a world in which the dead are processed into food biscuits, you find it hard to believe that there would be royal families. Yep. Yep. If you were to tell me that Unilever was like, you know what, we're going to start making food out of dead people, I'd be like, I'm not going to eat it, but that doesn't surprise me. But if you told me that the Tudors, I don't even know who the current royal family is over in the UK. If Queen Elizabeth was like, we're going to start making people biscuits, I'd be like, that's weird. But if you told me that, Nabisco was going to, I'd be like, that doesn't surprise me, but I will stay away from them. That being said, I had some gluten-free double stuffed Oreos while I was at Gen Con. Just made me think of that. One of the guys that I was with is a gluten-free person. I mean, well, we're all technically gluten-free, but he doesn't eat gluten. Anyway, I ate one, and then I was like, well, we'll see how this goes. And I could not tell the difference. I was like, oh, well, there you go. Great. Let's see here. Hope you're having a good weekend. Have you tried the Middle Earth strategy battle game company's skirmish game? Any thoughts? So I want to. I now finally have all the books that are necessary for it because it's Games Workshop games. You got to have 28 books, and I have some models. I've got some Uruk-hai Scouts, and I've got some Warriors of Rohan, not Riders of Rohan. I've started building the Scouts, and that's as far as I've gotten. So maybe eventually, yeah. I've got some terrain and stuff like that ready to go already, but that's stuff I've had for a while. CFOs are definitely more in touch with the dark side for sure. This is what I'm saying. Windsor, that's it. Not Tudor, Windsor. I knew it was something that ended with an OR. Let's see here. Ever see the movie Soylent Green? Classic, just regarding eating dead people. Oh, yeah. Good old Soylent Green. Let's see here. Yeah, the Rio is a good hike to the Strip, too. Like, honestly, when I have gone to the Las Vegas Open in the past, one time I can remember leaving the building. So the place that they used to have it in was the Ballet, which is a good-sized place. And then connected to it is the Paris, which is an entire another, casino and hotel rooms and all that stuff. And they are connected by, I was going to say a hallway, but it's fancier than that. It's like, there's all kinds of, it's like almost like a strip mall. Well, it's like an indoor mall. It's not a strip mall. So it's like an indoor mall that they're connected by. It's just one long hallway with shops on both sides and restaurants and all kinds of stuff like that. And it's a nice complex, and you have plenty of places to choose from to eat and do this and that and other thing and whatever. And I'm there not to do Vegas. I don't gamble. I think I spent $5 in Vegas on slots just so I could say, well, I've gambled in Vegas. It was a waste of time. But anyway, 1 year though, 2017, 2018, I don't remember exactly. Maybe 2018. There was a company that was there that was courting the wargaming market quite a bit. It was a company called Shapeways. Shapeways is a company that 3D prints stuff. They don't use resin. Well, I think they maybe use resin now as well, but they use this other type of process, which generally none of us can really afford very much. And it's like this incredibly microscopic powder that they move across, and then they laser each slice, and then they laser. It's a whole thing. I forget what it's exactly called, but that's what a lot of the stuff from Shapeways is made that way. Anyway, they were trying to get real hard. They were trying to get real heavy into the wargaming market. They had a booth at Adepticon that year, and then they had a booth at Las Vegas Open, and I became friends with one of their marketing people. She was great, and then her name is Lise, and then she introduced me to a couple other people who worked there. It was Sarah and Andy. Anyway, long story short, at Las Vegas Open, they were like, we're having a party for like influencers, for lack of a better word. So like I was there, Kenny Boucher was there, a bunch of other different folks and stuff like that. And it was a situation where we were all at this bar that was not on, you know, the actual Bally or whatever. And then we went to that bar, and then they were like, you know, buying us drinks or whatever, and that was fine. And just talking to people. It was very nice. And then we went to some other bar, and then some other bar, and it kind of devolved at that point. But that was the only time that I have really ever, like, normally in the past, every other time when I've gone to Las Vegas Open, land in airport, get a car, like a ride or whatever, you know, ride share to the facility, and then stay in the facility for 4 days and then leave. I just am not interested in going to do other stuff. So, so honestly, if the Rio had had everything all dialed in, and I could just stay in that building and have a couple different places to eat or whatever, or that kind of stuff, for me, that would have been fine. But it sounds like it doesn't sound like the Rio in general in the old days was problematic. I think it was a situation of, in 2022, they only had 3 of their restaurants open. Well, no, 2 restaurants and a Starbucks, because they didn't have people to work there, and it was a whole thing. And so that's what I'd heard from a video that I watched from some like well-known video game YouTuber who's been getting into 40K, and I can't think of his name now. But he did like a whole review about going to this thing and then being like, oh, this didn't work out so hot. But, you know, everything's kind of like that right now. I've recently fallen in love with God Tier. Have you ever tried it? I own some of the stuff. I was going to play a demo again. Actually, I talked to my friend Ross, who works for Steamforge Games, and I was going to play a demo at Gen Con. I ran out of time. The only problem that, again, I kind of have with God Tier is it's one of those games that A, is played on a hex grid, and B, there's like no terrain. You know, there's like, and that, it's kind of the same issue I had a little bit with Warhammer Underworlds. Like, Warhammer Underworlds was kind of cool, but I wish that it had terrain and it wasn't on a hex grid. But then it wouldn't be the same game, I suppose. So there's that. Have you ever played the war game Fallout Wasteland Warfare? Any opinion on the game or models? I've played it. There's a little bit too much board gaminess to it. Like there's like, you got to use this card, and you have all these little tokens and stuff like that. And for me, that's a little bit heading more into board game territory. So I'm a little, it's okay. It's not bad. It's doable. The models are okay. They're not bad, but they're okay. The main issue, I think, honestly, with Fallout is that I have fallen out of love with Fallout. I used to be a super huge fan. I loved Fallout 1. I did not play as much Fallout 2 as I would have liked. I played the heck out of Fallout 3, and then I enjoyed Fallout 4. And then as I was playing through Fallout 4, I was just sort of getting tired of this whole weird 50s aesthetic. And again, it was like, how did we end up here? Like, it's like it's supposed to be like, when the bombs dropped, it was like, what, 2076? No, that's not right. 2073? I don't know what the heck year it was. It was in the future from where we are now. And I can't, in my mind, understand why all of a sudden all of our cars would be humongous and like look like they're from the 50s. We'd all be walking around dressing like we were in the 50s. Like, that just kind of doesn't make any sense. It's just, I don't know. So that has just become a cognitive dissonance issue for me. And so that's part of the reason why, like, I don't know. I'm assuming they're going to make Fallout 5. I'll probably look at it. I'm much more interested in seeing Starfield, actually, which is from the same people, from Bethesda again. And if it doesn't suck, like, that to me makes, like, if it was like the 50s in space, I would have been like, listen, you got to dial that back a little bit. But it doesn't seem to be that way. So I'm more interested in that. But I don't know. I'm glad that there's people that are playing it. Like I was in the Modifius booth at one point, and they had a ton of stuff there for Fallout. So it's obviously they're still producing it, and it's pretty popular that way. But I have not played it in quite some time. It's called SLS. That's right. Yeah, stereolithographic something or other. That's what the S means. The second S there means something or other. But yeah, it is. It's like a big tank of powder, super fine powder, and the laser is burning each slice, and then the powder kind of drops just a tiny bit, and then it puts more powder over the top, and then when you get done, your product is like upside down in this tank of powder, and you generally don't need supports very much because the powder is supporting everything, the stuff that doesn't get burned, right? And then you just take that entire hopper full of parts and you dump it into this machine that sucks all the extra powder out of it, and now you have this all the parts. It's kind of cool. You can buy, like, Formlabs does make a kit that you could technically use in your house, but it's like $20,000. So, and you'd have to have a good size house, but you could technically do it. When I'm looking to be influenced, Adam and Kenny are at the top of my list. So there you go. Never been to Vegas. Totally fine with never going to Vegas. It's fun to people watch. That's, yeah. I live in the Las Vegas area and avoid the Strip. I can understand that. Bricky. I think Bricky... Stupid squirrel. There's a squirrel and a bird feeder again. Bricky. I think you're right. Bricky is the person who was like a video game guy. I think I saw his video. I don't know how it came up, but yeah. I like wargaming, and dice has a lot of chance, but also no interest in gambling. Ironic, just knowing the odds. I think it's because if I lose in a tabletop game, I'm like, oh, I lost. But if you lose in, like, Vegas, you're like, oh, that's money. I could have used that for tabletop games or whatever, you know what I mean? I could have bought more miniatures that way. My buddy's wife picked up God Tier as a gift, and her and I played it. I was underwhelmed. I asked her later, and she and her husband had played it. She responded, nah. Yeah, I like the concept in that you can build your forces out of basically anything. It's not like faction-based. But sometimes it's weird when you're like, it looks like they're in factions, but they're like, oh, you can build with any faction you want. But I'm like, then why? I mean, I don't know. It's weird, but whatever. Like, why have factions if the factions don't matter a little bit? Like, is there a benefit if you do stay faction pure, for lack of a better term? Which I don't like that term particularly, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah, I don't know. Never quite gotten the hang of it. Let's see here. In Fallout, isn't the microprocessor never invented or something? Yeah, I think that's part of it. I don't know why that would turn people into the 50s, but maybe. Fallout is an alternate timeline where the Cuba crisis went wrong. Well, that's a bummer. Yeah, that sounds familiar. And technology never progressed like it did today. But there's still nuclear-powered cars and, like, laser guns and stuff, so that's something. Selective laser sintering. Well, that's not the words that I thought at all. I thought it was stereolithographic something or other. It's not. No, selective laser sintering. That's basically it. Corvus Games, how you doing? Am I doing all right? I'm doing all right. There was a squirrel in a bird feeder, but he seems to have left. I live in Las Vegas and would be totally fine never going to Vegas. Sure. My mini factory is still in summer sale, and I dropped around 200 bugs in STLs. You pay with bugs? Wait, what? I'm confused. Got to be careful with gambling. I already have a predilection to addiction. Yeah, I mean, I don't seem to, thankfully, except for food probably. I seem to probably eat more food than I could, than I could eat less. But the other types of addictions, for the most part, I don't seem to thankfully have, knocking on wood. And luckily gambling, I'm just like, I'm kind of turned off by the whole concept. I'm just like, but I'm going to lose though. And then I could have spent that money on food or miniatures or, rent. I don't know. Lease. What? No. Mortgage. Mortgage is the term I'm looking for. Still baffles me that we haven't seen a Warcry or Kill Team video game a la XCOM Enemy Unknown. We have the technology. We can rebuild it. I feel like Games Workshop has, well, I was going to say, like, it would not make sense, in my opinion, for them to make a game that was identical to the rules of the game. Let me back that up. They did it with Warhammer Underworlds. There is a Warhammer Underworlds video game, and I believe that it plays basically just like the tabletop. Excuse me. But most of the rest of their games, they're trying to set the hook and get you interested as a video gamer. If you were to go to video gamers and go, look, this is a game that's turn-based and you have to roll dice, you're going to lose most of them. But if you're like, look, you get to be a giant power armor space marine guy and shoot orcs in the face and this and that, and they're like, all right, I'm listening. You know what I mean? Like that's, and then you play Space Hulk, or not Space Hulk, you play Space Marine or Dawn of War or whatever, and then you maybe start reading the books, and then eventually you're painting miniatures. Like that's the idea. It doesn't happen to everybody, but it does happen. We've talked about that in the past. But if you were to try to originally set that hook by being like, look, we made this game that will take 2.5 hours to play. You have to play it with somebody else, and but it's digital. That's not going to necessarily pull the trigger on people like that. Now, if they made a game that was like based off of Warcry but was more action oriented or something like that, that might work. And again, it seems like from time to time they do try. They did try with, like I said, Warhammer Underworlds. How many here, raise a hand, knew that there was a Warhammer Underworlds video game? Not a lot, as it turned out. It did not set the world on fire. So, yeah, I can understand why the video games are different than the tabletop games. But you're right. It would be very easy to take a lot of tabletop games and just make them video games. You know, just one-to-one, turn-based, the whole deal, hexes, all that jazz. That's easy to do. It's just not particularly interesting to the video game crowd, I think, is the problem. So, will you get back the original every other Sunday schedule, or will it be every other week from this Sunday moving forward? Hope that question makes sense. Mostly it does, yes. At least for a while, it's going to be on this schedule because I'm going to be going to Nova Open in a couple of weeks or something like that. Hang on. That's not the calendar. That's a clock. All right. So the next every other Sunday show will be on the 28th, which will be just before I leave to go to Nova. So it fits at least there. And then it should be like that for a little bit. And then the next thing that might bump into stuff would be me going to Dragonfall in October. When in October is the question. Let's see, Dragonfall. It's a miniatures convention in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. It's raising money for charity. It is October 22nd and probably the 23rd, I would assume. So, whoops, I've gone too far. All right, 22nd. Well, we'll have to see. We'll figure it out. But yeah, it will probably be on the schedule for a bit, is the plan. Oh, now I've lost my chat window. Where'd it go? There we go. Okay, cool. Never played the Fallout video game. Was too into FPS games like Call of Duty and Killzone. Sure. I wish Warcry and Kill Team would let you mix factions of the same order. Why can't I have Astra Militarum with one Space Marine or Elves and Dwarves? Yeah, no, I agree. That would be, yeah, that would be cool. I mean, you kind of a little bit can, well, not exactly, but you can kind of have allies at least a little bit in Warcry. But yeah, not so much a Kill Team. Around the turn of the century, people started wearing their trousers halfway down again like the 60s. If that can happen, I don't see why Raygun Gothic couldn't come back into style. Plastic crack is the only addiction we approve of around here, folks. Sure. Surely we have the tech to put Warhammer Total War on a console. PC gaming messes with me every time. I'd have more luck in Vegas. I think the problem with big games like that, like real-time strategy games, is that they're very mouse-oriented, and so it's difficult to play them with a thumbsticks and stuff like that. There are some RPGs out there, not RPGs, sorry. There are some RTSs out there, some real-time strategy games that have made the leap onto console, but they're kind of few and far between, at least from what I've seen. I have a video/videos idea. Teach us how to take pictures for our minis like you do on Instagram. Camera, setting, lighting, and general tricks of the trade. Yeah, I've been thinking about that, I'm not going to lie, it's a lot of work. And so I don't know that your average Joe is going to have, like, I've got C stands and fancy lights and all that jazz. And I use generally a fancy camera where I can set the aperture and the shutter speed and all that jazz. I can't take most of those photos that I take that you see on Instagram, the fancy ones with the terrain and the colors and all that kind of, or whatever. I can't take too many of those with my cell phone. I can take some decent pictures with my cell phone, but I can't take necessarily pictures like that because I'm setting things manually and whatnot. But it might be something interesting. At least people could even see it, even if they're like, oh, that's cool. I don't have any of that stuff. That's fine too, but they might be interested in watching that. But I've been thinking about that for sure. In fact, you have to individually buy the digital warbands for the Underworlds game kind of killed it for me. I mean, sure, that makes total sense, though, doesn't it? I mean, it seems like a company going, look, we know how you Warhammer folks are. You're interested in buying all this stuff individually, aren't you? So we'll sell you all the packs individually. And then video game people are like, that sounds like a loot box or something. I don't know, DLC, and yeah. Blood Bowl video game has a turn-based mode that is basically the tabletop version. Yeah, that's true, I guess. That's true. I suspect GW's rationale is, well, if they play Warcry, the video game, they won't want to buy and play the physical, more expensive tabletop Warcry. I mean, if that was the case, they wouldn't have made any video games. But again, if you made it like a one-to-one, like if you made a game that was like video gamey, but it was in the world of Warcry, then maybe those people might eventually start playing the tabletop game. It has worked in the past with 40K, but I don't know if it's necessarily going to work with everything. But yeah, no, that is a question. What should I paint for Dragonfall? They want something from me to auction. I can't decide. 40K, 30K, Age of Sigmar, Warcry. I mean, I would paint what you want to paint. If you're looking for popularity, it's probably 40K, but, A late hello from Cologne. Wanted to do some hobby time, but my internet decided to break. As far as I can tell, it was a combination of my router overheating due to it being hot in Germany and stuff. Yeah, that happens. But we're glad you're here. Hi from Michigan. Gotten into mini painting recently. Your content has been immensely helpful in reducing the frustrating aspects of learning a new skill. So thank you. Well, I appreciate it, Don. I'm glad to hear that it helps. For a person who wants to get into Warhammer 40K or Kill Team, what is a good starting point? Personally, I would tell you to start with Kill Team because it's fewer models, smaller area, just generally easier. There's not a way really to buy a box and get into 40K. Even if you buy, let's say, whatever the most recent box was, the Indominus box from 2020, I guess. And that would have the rule book in it and 2 small forces, Space Marines and Necrons. You could buy that box and be like, hooray, there we go. We're ready to go. Well, sort of. It doesn't have the board with it, does it? No. It doesn't really have any terrain in there, I don't think. Not that I remember, no. Well, maybe it does. I can't remember if there's terrain or not. Anyway, if you buy a Kill Team box, or Warcry, if you're into the more fantasy stuff, they will specifically... Well, the Octarius box, if you can still find it, will have the core rule book. It will have 2 forces, the board, the terrain, I think the dice, like everything you need to start with. That might be hard. It might be harder to find, but you can still probably find it at a lot of independent gaming stores, friendly local game stores as they're called. So there's a benefit to that because you get pretty much everything you need in there. The one thing you don't get is if you want to expand and start playing other armies besides the ones that come in the box, then you need to buy the compendium. That's where the whole thing kind of breaks down a little bit. That squirrel is working my last nerve. Anyway, yeah, that's something to think about. Kill Team is going to be a little bit easier to get into because it's played on a 22 by 30 inch board as opposed to, I know it's not 4 by 6 anymore, but it's, they used to be 4 by 6 is what size you played 40K on. I don't remember what it is now. It's like slightly smaller than that. Anyway, I feel like photography tutorial are pretty well covered on YouTube. I mean, some of them are. Good morning, Uncle Adam. Late joiner. We'll have to restart the stream. Enjoy your lunch with the in-laws. Indeed. Yeah, I haven't been there in like a couple of weeks because I've been traveling, and my wife was, she was playing in a musical and stuff, and so now that's all done, which is why Good old Nick Ramondo is back in his place there, so that's good to see. Space Hulk video game was very board gamey. Well, there've been a couple. Like if you play the Space Hulk Deathwing Enhanced, that's super first-person shooter. But there were also ones that were very like, I move over here and then you move over here. And so there have been some that have gone both ways, specifically with that particular, license or whatever. Good starting point for either of those games are the starter boxes. If you can afford the expense of starting from zero, paints, glues, brushes, and all that. Yeah, that's true too. I'd love a photography video as well. Maybe to simplify, you can set a budget like how to photograph minis for less than $100 or something. I mean, maybe. like if you don't already have the camera, that's going to be a tough one. The Recruit Edition for 40K, for example, is essentially a kill team. Yeah, that's kind of true. That's true. The old First Strike set was 2 kill teams. It was really good. Yeah, that was a spectacularly good for kill team. Yeah, it wasn't made for kill team. It was made for 40K, but it basically made you 2 real easy to use kill teams, and they was pretty inexpensive. It was a great set. I've been trying to decide on Dragonfall. I've never been. Any reasons I should go? Well, I mean, it's a fun, small convention. They do have some hobby seminars, I believe. I haven't taken a great look at the hobby seminars so far this year, but in the past, I know they've had hobby seminars taught by folks like, let's see here, Cathy, I think, was there. Cathy Wapple that we talked about earlier. I think maybe James was maybe teaching some as well. I remember Shoshi was there. Been a bunch of different people teaching things there. Let me see what else. There's like some demos. There's also tournaments. There's kind of a bit of a vending area. Like last year, I mean, it's small. Like it's not an Adepticon or anything like that. It's like last year, I think it was 250, maybe 300 people. Previous to the pandemic, they were probably up into the 400s or so. But, so hopefully it's going to start to kind of work its way back towards that. But that's the plan, though. But yeah, it's a good, I like it quite a bit. 44 by 60 for 9th. Oh yeah, that's right. That would make sense because it's 22 by 30 twice. Yep. Nick is back. Indeed. Wonder if the Witch Hunter Warhammer Underworld's Warband can be used in new Warcry. I mean, they probably don't have any stats out yet, but they might put stats in either a Warhammer Community Web article, potentially, or White Dwarf. That could happen. Those new Witch Hunter guys, though, are pretty cool models. I kind of want to paint those. To be fair, Catalyst Games had 200 copies of Alpha Strike for Gen Con, limited to 1 per person, sold out in 3.5 hours on Thursday. Yeah, I know. I just don't know why they only brought that many, I guess. That's kind of a bummer. It would have been nice to have more, but whatever. An American saying royalty seems weird. Well, that's a shocker. You're not wrong. Your passion for Warcry makes me want to pick it up. I'm sure it's a lot of work, but I'd love to see a battle report. Yeah, Sam and I have talked a little bit about that. We want to be able to do something like that hopefully soon. To be honest, most of what I've been doing lately in my free time has been getting things ready for the next game that Vince and I are producing. So, like I said, we're very close to launch, and so then after that, I will have. Well, then after that, there will still be marketing and some stuff that'll have to happen, but I will be able to do hopefully more hobby stuff for myself, but also be able to do some stuff for the channel, like potentially battle reports and things like that. I'd like to even just eventually try to live stream maybe a battle report, see how that works out. I don't know how well it would work, but it would be sort of fun. And maybe if it was just like Sam and I were having a good time, I think that could be fun. People might enjoy just listening to us play a game. What about the current budget 40K set? Is it worth the time and money? I guess I haven't looked at it super close. I've been thinking about introducing Mordheim to my gaming group, mostly 40Kers. I've never played myself, though. How should I go about convincing the gang? I mean, that's a tough shift in theme, number one. It's a tough shift in theme. Number two, it's hard to find models to play Mordheim these days. That's another problem. It's a game I wish they would reintroduce. I really do. And My hope, I guess, is that when they do eventually relaunch the old world, which they keep talking about, and they keep saying they're going to eventually, but we don't know when that's going to actually occur. If I had to guess, okay, so next summer is 10th edition 40K. Just, if it wasn't, I would be amazed, but it is. It's next, I'm sure it's next summer, because 9th edition came out in 2020. Next summer will be 2023, 10th edition, just straight up. That will probably do quite well. Now, if they also wanted to release the old world on the same summer, that'd be, or even the same year, that'd be a heck of a year. And you know that when they're releasing stuff, they're doing it to try to make the year better than the previous year. That's just the way corporations work. So it's a possibility we could see it next year, but it could be also the year after, which would be because 2021 is when Kill Team came out. 2024 would be a new Kill Team then. So, and also in Age of Sigmar 4. Yeah, it's hard to say. I don't know. I'm trying to figure when they would shoehorn it in there and try to make it pop so that they could get the best amount of profit possible. But yeah, not next summer, but the summer after that, we're going to have a new Kill Team, because we had Kill Team in 2021, which was last summer, and now it's 2022, and then it'll be 2023, and then 2024 will be time for new Kill Team. So, look forward to that, I guess. And also Age of Sigmar. So yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what they do. Mignosticon, a miniature agnostic wargaming convention. That's a good name. It can be hard for people to pronounce, but it's a good name. I like it. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, to some degree, the Tabletop Minions Expo that I do is a little bit like that. I mean, it's real small, but there are people there that are running stuff like Warcry and stuff like that. But for the most part, it is, well, maybe not miniatures agnostic. There are people there that are running. There's a lot of miniatures agnostic stuff at TMX this year, but there was also, like I said, a little bit of Warcry and a little bit of like Malifaux and stuff like that, which is not exactly miniatures agnostic. Not everything outside of Games Workshop is miniatures agnostic. If you make a game and these miniatures are for it, then that's not really miniatures agnostic. Certainly you could use whatever miniatures you want. It's your game. But generally when they make a line of miniatures designed for this line of rules, then it's not miniatures agnostic. Anyway, is there a name for your new game yet? There is. I haven't told anybody what it is, but there is definitely a name. It's all like literally it's going to launch in a couple of, it's not like we're like still working on it. It's done. It's just, we got to get all of our ducks in a row. And there are a lot of ducks. Is War Machine Mark IV interesting to you? It is. From a business aspect, it's interesting to see how they're going to do this. I'm interested in checking out the new rules. I talked to a couple of people about it, and they were like, well, it's a little different, but not that different and stuff. And I'm really hoping they're able to dial back the number of miniatures you need in a force. That's really, for me, the most important thing. Like, I don't want to push around 20, 30 miniatures. I want to push around 12 or less. You know what I mean? Yeah. A live stream bat rep would be awesome. It might be. I don't know. I'm not sure. I've watched some and they've been not awesome. So my concern is making one of those, one of the not awesome ones. I bought the 9th edition rulebooks and codices, but because of COVID, I haven't played a game of 40K. Yeah, that's when they're on a 3-year schedule like that happens to a lot of people, unfortunately. How do you have trouble getting models from Mordheim? I mean, they don't make them anymore. So if you're going to use the specific models, but if you're just going to be like, oh, we'll use whatever models we want, sure. But you're going to have people, especially if you're trying to convince 40K people, let's play this other Games Workshop game. And they're like, cool. Do I go into the website to buy those models? And you're like, no, get a bunch of just random stuff from Reaper and make up your own thing. That may be a little bit more of a hill to climb, is my thought. You pretty much can kit bash anything you might want from Mordheim. It'd be fun too. I agree. But if you're trying to get 40K people who've been playing 40K to start thinking outside that box, I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying it's a little bit more difficult. Do you have a painting competition at TMX? No. Not interested in competition. Been thinking about having a painting like show where people can bring stuff and just show it off, but there would be no competition, no trophy, none of that. So I'm not into that stuff personally. GW makes like 10 copies of their novels. I wanted to get the pre-order in for the aerial dogfighting one with the orcs, and it's already sold out. For their novels, don't they do ebooks? I would just get the ebooks personally, but I'm into that. They would have focused on the actual warjacks in the new version. Just seems like infantry machine again. Yeah, that's my concern. I need to take a look at the rules. Because if it's just about infantry again, I'm like, then why are we having these warjacks? Like, why? But I agree. But so far, I've been pretty happy with the models that I've got. I've just only got the 3. But I'm interested in seeing where it goes. Well, folks, it is 11 o'clock here in my neck of the woods, and it is time for me to go and try to get that squirrel to stop messing with the bird feeder. And then eventually go to lunch, and then I got a bunch of other stuff I got to get done. But thank you very much for coming by. I know it's been like 3 weeks instead of every other week because of the travel, but we'll be back on this schedule for a while, and we'll see how that goes. We'll see you folks hopefully soon. If you're interested again, I'm on Twitch tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Central Time. I'll be there for 3 hours painting. I'm currently working on a Tech Priest Dominus, which I'll be using for one-page rules. Grimdark Future Firefight, by the way. He's a lot of fun. We're calling him Spider Feet McGee because he has lots of little spidery feet underneath his robe. Anyway, so yeah, hopefully we'll see you then over on Twitch. And if not, we'll see you back here in 2 weeks. And it'll be just before I go to DC for the Nova Open. So, and probably by the next time we get together, the new game will be out. So that'll be fun too. So I hope to see you folks again soon. And I hope you have a good rest of your weekend, unless it's already Monday where you live, which is the case in some situations. But either way, thanks for watching.